Are you a hardworking dad, juggling family responsibilities while dreaming of building wealth through real estate? Welcome to the Invested Fathers Podcast, where we explore how to balance investing and fatherhood. I'm your host, Kenny Johnson, founder of East West Capital. Over the past 5 years, I've been buying real estate to free up my time and secure my family's future. Now I'm here to help you do the same. Join me as we navigate the real estate world together, building wealth and strengthening our families. As my grandma always said, East West, home's best. Tripp Stanford in the house, buddy. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and the weather just hit fall. I think it might be a false fall, but it's beautiful out there right now. So
I don't know about your wife or how fall changes things in the house, but
yeah,
my wife becomes a new person when what you just described happens.
oh, totally.
She'll tell me
Yeah,
it's a
no,
new Anna when fall is here. I'm excited.
no,
All I have to say is I'm excited.
no, it's amazing. Yeah, the house hasn't started smelling like pumpkin yet, but yeah, you can. My wife is also joyful. Yeah, we have a newborn, a 2-month-old at the house, so she's kind of been she can't go on walks because it's too hot, so she's been kind of cooped up for a little bit, but she's been able to get out the past couple of days. It's been amazing. Yeah,
Awesome. Tripp,
yeah.
we go back way far to about an hour ago with a good mutual friend who connected us. So we're bringing Tripp on the show today to just once again learn what are we doing out there in regards to fatherhood, our businesses. I know we all have different walks of life, but Tripp, again, thank you for making time for today. Tell everyone
Totally.
what's your business?
Yeah, so I full time. Thinking about this, I had to kind of think about what are my business is. So full time, I work my W-2 job, the one that pays the bills, that lets my wife stay home, and be a mom, is IFT. It stands for If This Then That. I run all of our website content, social media content, and emails. So I basically manage all of our content on the internet for IFT. We are an automation platform. So half of our audience that uses IFT for smart home. So whenever I get home, turn on my front door lights, when I lock my security, when I turn on my security system, turn off all the lights, they're just kind of connecting all their smart home devices. And the other half are small businesses, and they use us for everything from social media automation. So whenever I publish a TikTok, automatically upload that to YouTube, or whenever I get a new Facebook lead on my Facebook ads, automatically add that to my MailChimp account. So yeah, I would say we're a very broad, easy to use automation platform. Well, and in the market, we're more affordable. So we have a couple competitors. You can do a lot more. They technically have more automations, but they're a little bit more complicated to use. So with us, it's just very simple one-click integrations, and it just works. I mean, we have people that have been on the platform since 2010, and their applets have been running every single day, and it just always works. So
yeah, I mean, when you say the word automations and talking about light switches and emails, obviously you're saving a ton of people time and energy.
Oh, totally.
I used to work in a retirement community where these guys would have, this is their second or third home. And even saying light switches, there is a world of automation in just these smart homes, like you said, that I think would, maybe to some of our audience, that's that's what I have. But to others be just mind blowing type of things that are complicated to make the user's life that much easier. So I love that you're geared that way.
Sure.
Sounds like what is the most efficient way to get this thing done for you? It potentially always going through your mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, whenever I encounter a new task, I'm always well, how do I finish this task? And then I look back and how could I have done that a little bit easier, a little bit more efficient. But I mean, I do marketing for us. So it's a very unique situation where we have a product that does a million things for a million different types of people. Mm-hmm. And so it's been a cool, almost, just a tough experience trying to figure out how do I market this everything for everyone type of brand, So, I mean, for the smart home side, there are seniors that use our product that it helps them live in their house longer, right? Because they're able to like, turn on lights and turn on music and set their security system, and they don't have to like get up out of their phone or out of their chair to do everything. You know, it just it makes their life a little bit easier. Close their garage door after they leave. You know, so it's just a really cool product that has affected so many people. So
cool. And you're recording this from your home right now. I don't know. Could you share just like, are you someone that like does everything from the computer, where like you have your teams in place, or are you kind of like wearing different hats throughout the day? Obviously you're a dad or you have two now, 2.5 I think, and a fresh baby. So
totally.
Are you like totally remote at this point in your life?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So IFT as a business, we're remote first. So none of us, the CEO technically has like a co-working space in San Francisco, and that people could, join if they wanted to. And most of the team still kind of lives in that San Francisco Bay area, but we've got a mobile developer out of Brazil. We've got a backend developer out of Portugal. One of our customer success team lives in Greece. So we're very spread out. And so I'm one of three right now that lives on the East Coast time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah. So there's a co-working space here in Chattanooga, and I'm very personable, so I can't just like sit around in my house all day. So I like to kind of split up my day. I'll ride my bike, drop off the toddler at school, head to the co-working space, work a few hours, come back for lunch, and then do all my meetings in the afternoon.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, but I've lived the office life before, and I don't think I can ever go back to a full time in the office 9 to 5.
Yeah. I would venture half of our audience is probably enjoying their work in that like 9 to 5 like role. Yeah. And then there's another half that's like maybe more like entrepreneurial, and I don't mean that in like a better way, just like they're kind of more consistent paychecks, and maybe risk adverse to say like, hey, this is a month I made a lot of money, and last month was a month I made money, and
I'm going to take off in a couple weeks.
Right. Yeah, sure.
No, and there's nothing wrong with like actual in-person office jobs. I do just really like the flexibility of remote work, and like the beauty, in my opinion, is I could drop my kid off at 8:30 at daycare and then go pick him up at 4. Like no one's like checking to see if I'm sitting in my seat, right? Like as long as I get my stuff done, everyone's happy, and like as long as the registrations and subscribers is up to and to the right, everyone's happy. So when I said I'm not going to go back to 9 to 5 in the office, there's a world I could go start working in an office somewhere, but if they allow that flexibility of like being able to leave at 4 to go pick up a kid, then sure, there's a beauty in that.
I love to ask the question sort of earlier in the conversation, what was it like growing up in your household? Because we're going to be talking about fatherhood. Some of our dads are dads of 18-year-olds, 21-year-olds, sort of post-college, middle college. Some are in that like changing diapers or figuring out how to, spend time in the backyard throwing a ball kind of deal.
For sure.
What are some ways you would describe growing up in your household? Maybe specifically with your dad.
Yeah. So I have a twin brother. He lives in Charleston, South Carolina. I think he works either for Volvo or BMW, one of the major plants down there.
So how close are you guys?
Yeah. Well, he's bounced
in between.
He's doing he's one of those. I feel like he has another job every couple of years. So
cool.
Yeah, good dude. But growing up, my dad was also a great dad. But like when I became a dad, I started almost criticizing like my childhood to some extent. I'm trying to figure out like what were the beautiful parts of my childhood, and then also what do I want to do a little bit different as a father to like create a childhood for my sons that I'm proud of.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, I thought he always coached our baseball teams. growing up, which was cool. That was something he was really into.
Mhm.
And he was always the hardest on us compared to like all the other kids, which was great. You know,
Yeah.
I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
And then even in high school, Scott and I both played rugby. So
Ooh.
he was our rugby coach. That was also something. He played rugby in college, so it was one of those things like, oh man, I can really share my love for rugby with these guys. You know?
Was his job where he could like take off to do that, or was that kind of a sacrifice to him to coach? Like, was that just like, no, I'm coaching these boys? Like, I don't
yeah. No, I mean, our practices were always in the afternoons, so he was always home at that point to coach us. You know, so I think he was always a very like present father. And then I think he was always. All my friends loved him. You know, like he was the dad that was
cool
almost
dad.
like the cool dad. Yeah, because my house was the house that everyone went to hang out at. Other parents wouldn't care. Like everyone would just crash at my house, and like we would all, play video games all night.
Right. Sure.
And my dad was like cool with it. So very laid back. Congenial, friendly. Built good relationships with all my friends. So no, I think he was a really good dad when we were growing up. But I do strictly remember there was a lot of times I wanted him to play on my level, So like when I'm 5 and I want to play with like dinosaurs or something, and he was always like, when we were really young, he was kind of always away, like in the back room working. He was a computer programmer, so you can kind of work wherever. And I think he was always trying to work a little bit harder. We were basically a single income home as well. So I think there was a lot of stress looking back, but he never, the one thing that I feel like I missed out on was like, him getting down on my level and playing. Even playing video games in high school, he'd always kind of like stand back and like joke with everybody, but he didn't like, hey, move over, let me come play with you guys. So that's something I do want to change with my kids, is just try and like my kid right now is really into dino trucks, the toddler. I don't know if you've encountered dino trucks.
Not yet, but I'm gonna have to look it up.
Yeah, so it's these action figures. We got them at a yard sale down the street, but there's a Netflix show that they kind of go with. And they're basically dinosaurs that are also trucks. So
sounds great. Dino trucks
is the best thing. Yeah, no, you just merged my kid's favorite 2 things in the world.
Okay, wait a second. Who's more excited about this? I feel like I'm sensing these are more for me. Like, well, awesome.
There's a way I can like interact with them. Yeah, maybe this is also something innate in me. Like I want to play with my kid on his level, like I want to imagine what he's trying to imagine and create stories with him.
Yes,
that in a way that he could interact with, and like we can build something together. So So I felt growing up, my dad was always a great dad, but I never felt like he got onto our level. It was always very, he was the authority figure, but he wasn't like my best friend.
Yeah. And I would guess, I mean, we don't have to go super into this, but the relationship he had with his dad, like I would presume
same way.
was, okay. So that's what.
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, his dad was always highly structured, like military man. And it was always separate, like I'm your father, I'm not your friend. Yeah.
I mean, when I meet people, I feel very connected into understanding them better when I ask that question. Like, hey, what was it like? What was your dad like? Or what's the relationship with you and your dad? And then, you kind of go one more layer back, and it just, you start sort of seeing the potential reasons of, that authoritarian figure in your life.
Totally.
And I'm sure every kid has said this, but it's like, what do I want to change about my dad? Like he wasn't this enough, and I want to do this. And I'm sure you're like your dad in so many ways that like you would maybe not admit, but then like, but
those things are the things my wife picks out. Yeah. She's like, oh, you're acting just like your dad.
Yeah. And I'm the same way, like even jokingly, like my dad, we used to always make fun of the way he'd sneeze because it was like the most like hugest sneeze you could imagine. And I'm like, Dad, like it's so embarrassing. Guess who's sneezing? Like the biggest sneeze, right? Yeah. So we become our dads in different ways, but I love, the takeaway I feel from that at least story of the dino trucks is when our kids see us enjoying them, I feel like there's just a different level of like love that happens, because it's like it's no longer like dad's playing with me because I asked him to play with me, or
Yeah.
like he's on his phone but he's doing something with me. It's like you're literally down with them, like this
Yeah.
is so cool, watch how this works. And like
Yeah.
I feel like there just becomes this love and bond that just develops in that way. So it's really cool to see that even to our audience that's not watching you, like your face just kind of like got excited.
Oh,
um
totally.
so we already kind of went into a little bit of like, so now that we know about your childhood, what are you doing with your kids now? We know about the dino trucks, but maybe give us some stories of like, I mean, you're with a 2-month old, so
Uh-huh.
and you're an automations guy, and there's
Yeah.
really no fast way to change a dirty diaper. I mean, there is, but there's all that mode
Yeah.
you're in right now. Tell us a little bit of like day to day things you're thinking about, maybe some, I mean, you're like goals of like
Hmm.
fatherhood, things that you're working on.
Yeah. So I've got a 2.5-year old and a 2-month old. IFT is great because I get basically 8 weeks of paternity leave. Whenever you have a kid. So I took the first 4 weeks in July, and I'm taking the next 4 weeks in October. So I got to split it up, which is really nice. So my wife and I actually had this conversation last night. I suck at enjoying newborns.
Mm.
Like they literally just sit there, they eat all the time, they poop all the time. Sometimes they sleep,
Sometimes.
like
Very
yeah,
rarely.
sometimes. So that was something I'm really like struggling with, is like trying to. And on the other hand, I've got this 2.5-year-old that I get to play with and like take places, and like we go to the creek and we go swimming, and like he's talking to me with words, and I get to like make jokes with him. And he's funny, like there's this balance of like, man, I really love this stage of my two-year-old life, and then I'm back in it with this like blah that is my son that I can't interact with, and maybe a lot of other fathers struggle with that, but that's something I'm like struggling with a lot recently, is just trying to like appreciate and enjoy this new life that we created during this time that I might not be getting the emotional enjoyment out of it, so
and that might
dude.
even it's interesting, you say you're talking to your wife about it. This question of fatherhood, the marriage dynamic obviously is like forefront. Like we could clearly, every episode could be like, hey, fatherhood and marriage, because they're like they're so joined. I would maybe ask like the relationship with your wife right now. I mean, obviously she's going through the ringer with supplying food or whatever.
She loves newborn.
Okay, so
like,
she's at a high, and she sees you,
oh,
like
she's
Mr. Eeyore right now.
Oh,
she's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
what's going on? So
Yeah.
has that been something where you guys are like, we need to talk about this?
Well, I mean, we had our first date night in 8 weeks last night. So we had some time to like actually chat about it,
Yes. That's great.
Yeah. No, and I think she was born to be a mom. She's a great mom. So it was really cool. I am blessed that she can really enjoy and appreciate this. Maybe I've found it. Yeah, I don't want to be the wet towel on the whole situation whenever she hands Jones to me, So, so it's come up a couple times, but yeah, I think that's just something I'm trying to work on and work through. And yeah, it's beautiful watching her being able to find enjoyment and excitement during this time. Yeah.
I'm a big advocate of where you're weak, like she's strong. And, maybe there's potentially a disconnect with just like some emotional things where the boys are going to come to you when they're a little bit older because like you're on the ground playing down the trucks with them both, whatever. So just the way the dynamic works there, I think is beautiful. And I again, another belief is like, that's what America's missing right now, is these present dads who are so engaged with their kids, but also like taking care of the wife.
Yeah.
Have you seen that with, I don't know, other buddies of yours? Like, I don't know. Well, just a dad presence.
I feel like our generation is a little bit more interactive than previous generations. Maybe we're a little bit more emotional. We're able to like tie into those emotions. And the community I'm a part of here in Chattanooga, I feel like is very progressive from like a emotional standpoint,
Progressive.
but yeah, just progressive. Like
Yeah. Like, let's adapt.
there's a world where like friends of mine will just be stay-at-home dads if the wife is like more career oriented, like they just love being a dad that much, right?
Okay.
After my month long of paternity leave, I realized that I love work. I feel like this is
Yeah.
where like I can bless the world with my skills is through work. I want to be a great dad, but I also don't want to see that as work, so I don't know. I
Right.
wouldn't be a good stay-at-home dad,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I want to be a present dad. I want to be an intentional one, and I want to be there accessible, So like as my wife is stay at home, if she wants to take a nap and like the baby's napping, but she just doesn't want the baby to nap on her, then let's throw him in a swing and I will be working and he'll just sleep over there in the corner,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
To answer that question, I definitely think I've seen it more often now that like dads are more interactive with their kids, especially like, in your mid 30s, our generation, everyone's a little bit more, intentional.
Yeah. I had a thought the other day. Actually, this was today. You mentioned like the different stages of life a little bit. They get an older emotional connection. It's actually my brother who said something like, "Hey, when my son, which is my nephew, when he's 20, him and your son Moses, they should be in business together. Like they should do this like house flipping kind of stuff." And I'm like, "Okay, you're crazy." I was like, first off, there's who's going to be the boss here is the biggest question. If they did this, who's in charge? All these like hypothetical things, but just that idea of like we're in this stage today, newborn stage for you, 2.5 years, but like they're going to be somebody, they're going to be adulting and
totally
able to run businesses, things that like obviously we're in right now. But I just thought that was a really cool idea of like how they're being raised, and this goes into a question for you. That idea of investing into your kids, investing into the family. These are things where you're putting time in now, but you're not going to get anything until maybe never, or maybe I hear these things where it's like, oh, these older guys in church. Oh, I told my son this 1,000 times, and now that he is 25, he came to me one time and said, "Thank you so much for telling me this thing forever." Between my
forever.
15. So, what are some thoughts you have now on like? And you said you're built to work. Like you enjoy work. Thoughts of like investing into the family. How are you doing that? What are some thoughts there?
Yeah. Well, so I guess super high level, I want to see, I want my son to watch me, build a business, work for a company, but just ultimately glorify God in the work that I do, and be able to build a lifestyle where I am accessible to him. Like if he's on one of the days that he's home and he's like, he falls and he's crying, that he'll come run to me, and I'm not going to like if I'm in this meeting, I'm like, "Hey, look, I got to leave real quick. Let me go take care of this." Like I'm not going to like put work above my family and my wife, So I want to set that example early and continuously through the next 18 years while they're in the house. And then beyond that, from like just a personal perspective, I run a small side hustle agency, right? I basically, before I worked at IFT, I was running an agency full time. And I kept the couple clients that were like my favorite, that I've built the best relationship with. We have the best ongoing, like they're just growing year over year, and it's really nice for me to help out. I basically do fractional CMO services for home service clients, so roofers, installation companies, moving companies, painting companies. And I want something that I hope, my son's too young right now to like see this, but I hope that he will see that like business is way beyond just that paycheck. It's the relationships you build,
Mhm.
like something that gives me tons of fulfillment and joy just on the side. This is like why I've kept those clients, is watching their businesses grow. Like they're able to like provide for their employees, provide for their families beyond. And I was able to like be a small part of that, just help them grow to a point that like they're flourishing and they're able to like provide with their, yeah, I don't know. So
I love that.
that's one lesson I hopefully that my kid learns, is that like you're never, sales isn't, how do I put this? Sales isn't like an aggressive dog eat dog world. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you in business, you're building relationships, and in every relationship, like a business and a just friendship, like both parties should grow,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like there should be a mutual benefit, right? Like I don't want to be out here eating steaks while all my clients are eating hot dogs. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
everyone wins. So
Yeah.
that's one lesson that hopefully my kid will learn.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's great, Tripp. I think you're showing your values. You mentioned the word fulfillment.
Mhm.
You know, do we need money? Yes. Like there's things that we need with money, but can
Yeah.
we help people? Can we find fulfillment? Can we enjoy our work along the way? If we're getting out of
Mhm.
bed, begrudgingly providing for our families each day, I would say you're not providing for your family. I mean, you're getting them a place to sleep and
Yeah.
eat, but you're not providing what the family needs,
Mhm.
and that is like engagement and purpose.
You're
Um,
mhm.
yeah.
Totally.
Would you add to that?
I've seen myself fall into this trap before, like where I'm like hyper worried about, oh, where's the next dollar going to come from? Um, and then I'm almost in this scarcity
Mhm.
mindset. And in that mindset, I'm not a good husband to my wife. I'm not a good dad to my son. Like there's a fear that lives in that.
Mhm.
And I'm not able to be my own true self. So yeah, I think when I'm in a world of abundance, in a mindset of abundance, then I'm able to be a better dad and husband and employee. Like I'm able to think way beyond just like that day. I can think like long term for those clients and for IFT. Yeah.
I think that's gold right there. Because the mindset,
Mm-hmm.
there's so much stuff on mindset. Just I was just on a call earlier today, and it's just all pretty much all about the abundance mindset versus the scarcity
Yeah.
mindset. And I really do feel like you're in one of those two categories today. Like you're rather there is
Yeah.
little that we need to be able to jump on, and if we don't get it, then
Mm-hmm.
like we're in trouble. Versus like there is
Yeah.
so much that is out there. If we could just get a part of it and help these people along the way, because there's enough for everybody, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a completely different person on either side of those. And another thing that you mentioned about your son, you want them to see you acting this way. There's things that I do on the computer, you do the computer, they see dad on the computer, they see dad on the phone. But I think showing those things of like you said, your son falls and like you're there, even though you're on a call, like you're with him,
Yeah.
things that maybe he doesn't understand, but he at least recognizes, like, okay, like dad
Mm-hmm.
came. And then also like no one probably knows the backstory of this insulation company or painting company, the relationship that you guys
Yeah.
have built, but like seeing, employees being hired, whatever, like stuff growing, like it's firing you up.
Yeah, so there's an installation company here in town I started working with probably a year ago. They came to me because like they had hired a different agency. They were running, paid ads, and they were getting like 2 leads a month for like a significant. It was like I think they were spending like $1,000 a month, and they're like, look, we just need help. We feel like we're way overcharged for the work and for uh the leads, and like they're not, this is like a national agency they were using.
Mhm.
um and they were just like, they felt like they weren't getting heard, so we jumped on a couple calls. I started working for them, and this year, so the business is great. They've got really good local SEO, so they're ranking in the majority of areas around Chattanooga for insulation contractors. And they did that all themselves. Like they basically were just asking, they did good work initially, and then they asked for reviews after the good work was complete. And they just gained so many reviews. They just basically beat every other competitor in their local space. But that's only half of the battle with home services. I mean, the way Google SERP is set up is basically there's so many options to click on a paid link that if you're not in the paid space, you're losing opportunity. And so we started spending money, and right now, I mean, it's August, so we're like 8 months in, and we're on track to spending less than 40 grand on just ads, my cost completely. Just 40 grand for this year, and they're on track to do 750K plus in revenue. So the return is there, and all it took was like a few hours of my time, nights and weekends, to like manage, set up, track, and make sure everything's just running smoothly. So it was a cool way for me to like donate. I mean, I'm getting paid for it, but like give some of my skills that it's taken me 12 years to build and learn. Right. So they've been able to like blow up,
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I can see how that can fire you up. And that's one of those stories where it's like you went from, zero to hero. They went to zero to hero by Stanford here. Like they saw the light, made some tweaks, cared about them.
Totally.
Sure, came alongside them. You worked nights and weekends. So it wasn't like you were like this was probably a sacrifice of like, I mean, but you enjoyed it at the same time. I mean, this was time put in that.
Yeah, it does help me. I mean, it's another reason why my wife gets to stay home. So that's
right.
Yeah, and I really value her able to grow or be there with her kids. You know? So speaking of invested fathers, you work in real estate, right?
I do. Yes.
I am not a huge real estate guy. Yeah. But we do own a couple of rental properties.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
This is a bigger question just for the audience. It's not even a question. You want to hear a cool story?
Absolutely. Play it on, Tripp.
Yeah. So I am all about win-wins everywhere, across the board. All right. I try and find like, how can I bless you while you bless me? I owned a small little house back in, I think I bought it in 2018 before I got married. My wife, we get married, she moves in. COVID happens. We end up like interest rates are really low, and we had two incomes at that point. So it was amazing. So we were able to buy a bigger, but like fixer upper house down the street. So we moved, rented out that first house. The whole time, we've owned that other house in 2018. Our neighbor was in this small little duplex, and her name's Johnny. And at the time I met her, was 88 years old. She lives there with her son that's in his late 50s. Okay. But amazing neighbor. It was cool. Like I would just literally hang out by the fence and chat with her about like the way she grew up. She kind of grew up in rural Tennessee, and it was just a cool, I don't know, it's just, you never really get the opportunity to talk to people like that, So at least I don't go and hang out at old folks' homes a lot,
Yeah.
So, but Grace and I kept, chatting. And we're like, man, one day, if it makes sense, like we want that house. Johnny's the best tenant. She's just an amazing woman. We want that house long term, also, just because we've never had a duplex before, so it'd be a cool way to like invest and hopefully make money long term. Well, this past year, our current tenants said that Johnny was moving, and we were like, oh no, she can't move. What's happening? And so we ended up finding the owner of that house, and this was her only rental property, and she was getting in her 70s, so she was getting a little bit older. So I ended up calling her and like basically just pleading with her to like let me buy this house, please. I mean, you probably get a bit of this. I'm not a big real estate guy, so I'm not out there buying a ton of properties. This is the first time I was really like hustled. I was like, I need this house. And so we ended up getting a HELOC on our primary residence, because I don't know how to raise money, and I was just like, I need to buy this. She wanted to close in 2 weeks with all cash. And I was like, I need to figure this out. But no, I think there was half of it was, yeah, maybe this like, man, if I could like buy this, fix it up, and I could provide a good place to live for Johnny. But then also I don't want Johnny to move. Like she's in her 90s. I don't want her to like, her original plan was she was going to move to like a place downtown that is really well known for not being a good place to live, and she's like, has been in that house for 15 years already. She knows the neighborhood. She walks the neighborhood. I was like, I can't. If another investor came in there, they'd kick her out and flip both sides just to make it profitable. So long story short, this was a beautiful. We haven't made any money yet. We're kind of like down a lot of money on this property, but it was a good opportunity for me and my wife to like, create a space for our neighbor to live, hopefully a lot longer. She's 93 now. So yeah. And she's doing great. She walks every single day, super healthy. That's awesome. Yeah, I guess in maybe 10, 15 years down the road, like the house could be worth more. We could pull some equity out of it. We flipped one side, and just made Johnny's nicer. But yeah, no, we've lost a lot of money on this thing. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love this story. First off, dude, thank you. I feel like something changed. So I left, I was a customer service sales guy for 10 years, and I left that to do real estate investing full time. And one of the like aha moments that happened to me was I'd walk around the neighborhood with my kids, and you just start getting to know everything about your neighbors. It doesn't take long to just like hear someone's life story because you're standing in front of them listening. And you mentioned like kind of hanging out by the fence, but I think it's really cool how the relationship was starting to form. You started caring about this lady. She's old, very old. And you took it upon yourself to say, okay, I'm going to track down this owner, which is another huge part of real estate, is like, not the cyber stalk, but like there's skip tracing is, I think the nice way to put it, where it's like, you're finding out people's information so that you can have a conversation with them. And found out she was in her 70s, et cetera. So, and then you started the HELOC route. Like, how could I fund this? You started going down the road of like, where can we get this money?
Yeah.
So we're still looking to get some positive cash flow here, it sounds like. But
eventually, yeah, we'll definitely, it was a good investment, but I think it was also a great like investment in our neighbors. I think
absolutely.
I guess the thing I wanted to bring up that story just because I know your audience is more like real estate focused. Yeah, I think maybe as you're looking to buy more property and try and think of like the human side of it. How can you create and curate great living opportunities for your neighbors? So I got really lucky to she sold us the property. She could have just said no. I mean, she was
right.
Yeah, she gave us a discount because she really had a good relationship with Johnny, and she was gonna like, she wanted Johnny to kind of live there for the rest of her life, which was awesome. It was just a great opportunity for everybody involved. But she also was on the other fence. Like, she could have sold it to someone else for a lot more money and they would have just kicked Johnny out, renovated the whole thing, So it was just a cool, great experience on our end, just because like, the seller was a really kind individual too. Yeah,
that's awesome, dude. Tripp, we're gonna wrap up here pretty soon, but I wanted to love that story. Wanted to leave, if you wouldn't mind sharing a key takeaway, something that has something in where you're at right now in your life. You're speaking to other dads. You've covered a lot of different topics and different buckets, but what is something you could leave our audience with as we sign out? Piece of advice.
No, I mean, this is a comment. There's another guy on LinkedIn I follow, and he's talking to me. I think it's called 3 miles per hour fatherhood. That's kind of like the hashtag he always posts, but he always posts questions for dads, and a lot of dads are always in the comments on LinkedIn. I don't know his name. I'll send you his name in a DM afterwards.
Okay.
But one of my comments got kind of like went viral, and it was basically the comment I was telling you earlier, just try and play on your son's level. So like, if they're into dyno trucks, get down on the ground and play dyno trucks with them. Like if they're in high school and they're really into working on cars, and you might have never touched a car in your life, like try and learn how to work on cars with them, like, or if they're in their 20s and they really want to start a business, and like be an entrepreneur, there's a world where you can work with them to be a business owner, just those are different forms of play, and just try and maybe look at it that way. It's like, how can I build a better relationship with my son by playing with them on their level, like what they're interested in,
Yeah. Man, I love that. Tripp, thanks again for making time today, brother. Our audience wants to follow you. You mentioned LinkedIn a couple of times. What are some, how would you direct them to keep up with what you're doing?
Yeah. So the main thing is LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. If you just search Tripp Stanford, you'll find me. Also, if you just search Tripp Stanford on the internet, I'm pretty easy to find.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Still, Stanford, the university, won't sell me any of those domain names. They're the worst. They've bought every single like top level domain name around Stanford, and they're holding on to it, dude. It's the worst.
If anyone out there can hook a brother up that has any connection to Stanford domain names, that's all. Please give me a call. Find Tripp on LinkedIn. All right, Tripp. Thanks again, buddy. Take care.
All right. Adios, Kenny.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Invested Fathers Podcast. If you liked this episode, we would love for you to click subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate all of your hard work as a father and look forward to our next episode together.